So Mike, it's obviously been a hectic few months since we sort of last caught up. I mean, just firstly talk to us about the last few months in the Elite Academy and some of the brilliant success stories in that time as well.
Yeah, it has been a few months, and a lot's happened. Every week there's something going on, quite a lot of games. As naturally at this time of the season, at the business end, there's a lot to play for. But we've seen a lot of success on the pitch in terms of the academy, and then we've seen a lot of success in the first team with debuts and performances, and seems to be coming thick and fast, and it's something that we've really enjoyed.
I suppose you touch on it there. That's the main thing that people will see. Obviously, the lads playing for Neil Ardley's first team. It's obviously brilliant to have them involved. I mean, it's been 5 first team debuts this season and a total of 15 appearances across those players. I mean, how satisfying and impressive is that for you as obviously the academy manager?
Yeah, it is. It's about development for me, and obviously since the start of the season and even last season and the season before, to see how much these lads have grown as people and as players has been really impressive, and it is satisfying because we get to play a part, albeit a small part, in their journey and their development and their success, and their success is our success, and that's what kind of culture we created really. So it's been it's been probably more than what we first thought we might get in the second season, but obviously we'll take it, and we hope for more. Our job is just to put players in the right place, give them the right tools to be able to succeed, and put those players in front of Neil and Quinny, and then it's down to them. The success doesn't just come because we've got good players. The culture's right from the top. Obviously the board want a pathway, and you've got to have the players to push through that, but also you've got to have the first team with open arms ready to bring them in and utilise them. But the thing for me is just they haven't just gone in there, have they? They've actually gone in there and performed, and they've held their own and done everyone proud. So no, I'm really pleased.
I was going to say that because obviously you must, when you know that they're in the squad, you must pay obviously incredible attention to it, but they've never looked out of place for a minute, have they, when they've stepped on that pitch for the first team?
No, obviously I take a great pride in when players in the first team, and we follow that, and the staff are always keeping an eye on Twitter if we can't be here because we've all got other commitments. But yes, it's great, and they've done really well. They've equipped themselves. Even when they've gone to training, like the gaffer and Quinny have always said that if they train well and the opportunities will come, and they do. They just, like I've said before, they're a special group, and they're not like any other people I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of lads their age, but what sets them out above everyone else is their mindset. They're a throwback to kind of old school, when like mentally resilient, tough lads that they cope really well with scenarios and situations, because you see people go in at different times. Like Wayne Rooney went in at a young age, and the reason he was very mature beyond his years, and Michael Owen and people like that, they've got the resilience and the coping mechanisms to go and do well. And I think that it's a throwback watching these lads go out and take it all in their stride and continue to work really hard, really. So yeah.
Could you have ever sort of envisaged the level of involvement, obviously, this season? Because I mean, I can go down to the training ground and you see anything up to 7 or 8 lads, but at times sort of training with the first team and getting that experience, but then also obviously making those appearances for the first team as well. Could you have ever sort of envisaged how it's sort of gone this season?
No, like I said just now, we're in dreamland, but it takes kind of a 360 approach for that to happen. Like, we've got to have the players, we've got to have the culture, we've got to have the pathway, we've got to have the staff that can push those players and know what they need to be improving. We've got to have a good games programme, which obviously we have. We've got to have management in the first team that are open arms. We've got to have the board, everyone pushing in the same direction. So it's great. There's always something kind of happening, and we've never had to drive that, really. It just happens organically, which is really pleasing for us. I think the main thing for us this year, like, we were very successful last year in terms of leagues and trophies and things like that, and we're not kind of in it for that. That's not what success looks like for us. And last year we got to a point where actually we got towards the end of the season and it did become about winning the league, because the lads drove that, and they've got to learn to win because they've got to win in the first team. But we sat back and we looked at how we were playing, and we were very dominant last year in terms of possession and putting teams into a low block, and the way we were playing was very successful. So just putting people into that kind of structure as well was kind of helping that. But we sat back and we looked at are we doing them a disservice by doing that and pushing teams into a low block, because we're just always developing players to play in front, in the space in front. So we looked at how we might surrender the ball a little bit more, and how we can move that space and kind of work on the spaces in behind teams to help players like Kian and Leo and Tyler, and players that are going to thrive in those situations, because that's what they're going to do in the first team. So we took a step back, and again it's been great to see.
You've touched on it a little bit in your comments there about sort of last season. Towards the end of the season, the results were the main thing, and I suppose we're in that stage now of the season with the the first team. Obviously they've finished their season. Obviously the first team appearances are probably the best measure of success, but it must fill you with immense pride to see us competing on all fronts in the matches that we've got, in the leagues that we've got as well, because I think all of our teams have still got a chance of winning the respective leagues, and we're also in the cup final on Monday as well.
Yeah, no, it is there's loads of different versions of success as we've talked about before, and yes, we're here to develop players to go into the first team and make them successful, and develop players to go and play at a higher level. We've had a couple of players go out to Category 1 academies this year off the back of their performances, and yeah, so it's great that we're still involved. We've got 4 league titles. We've got one. We've already won one. We potentially could put another 3 in the trophy cabinet if all being well, results go our way and we continue doing what we're doing. And obviously said Monday, but we've got some tough games ahead. Nothing's taken for granted, and like I said, we're not here to show the trophies. Our trophies are getting players in the first team, and long may that continue.
There's obviously a few lads who've sort of been in and around the first team as well. I mean, a few names that spring to mind: Tyler Brook, Ross Evans, Ethan Brasher, and Jack Cook from the first years as well. I mean, they're lads who seem to get a mention a lot of the time. I mean, the question really is, I mean, how far away are perhaps we from getting even more of the lads involved with the first team, do you say?
Well, I can't answer that really, can I? That's down to what is needed in the first team. But I will say that the lads that have been seen, they've done well, they've taken their chance, and there's a lot more talent underneath that. And I think that the names you mentioned there, they are, but there's probably, we've got 60 players near enough on our programme, and every single one of them is a good player, otherwise they wouldn't be here. And we always say that the minimum they can get is what we offer them. Their ceiling is up to them. What they do when they're in the building and making the most of it is down to them. And generally, the failures are coming from them not putting that extra bit in, or not taking the opportunity when it falls. And those lads you mentioned, yeah, they're good, and there's others that will follow, I'm sure.
You've obviously mentioned it a lot throughout the interview, but what does success sort of look like now for the Elite Academy, would you say?
Just, it's never ending. As a staff team, and I've got a fantastic staff team around me, as a staff team we don't stop. We're always moving, we're always ahead of where we should be. We're seeing success now that probably is coming to fruition now, but the work was done ages ago, and that's going to continue. The first years, there's a lot of talk about the second years because they're the first group coming through, but the first years are a very talented group as well. You mentioned 2 of them there, but there's a lot of others, so I'm excited to see what they can do for the rest of the season and next season. But then the recruitment for the year after has been very thorough again, and we're close to finalising that group for the year after, and we're really excited about that group. So we've got to continue to kind of bring that calibre of player in that can continue the success with the first team and keep putting players in front of them, and developing the academy as a whole is really important. The education system's really been successful, and we're developing that. More programs that we're putting in place, potentially contracts for players to to be going on next year as first year professionals, and that's exciting. And so we're just going to continue to give them a holistic, all-round 360 experience and develop.
You mentioned it right there at the end, sort of contracts, and I suppose what does the perhaps the future look like for, you know, some of those lads that we have seen on the, you know, in the first team, but also some of the other lads as well.
Again, my job's just to put the players in the right places at the right times, and then obviously they have to go and earn what they get. So if contracts are put in place for those players, then great. You know, I have no control over it. We could just kind of put them in the right place at the right time, and hopefully they fall into that category and they get them. So, but that would be a natural progression for the group of players that we have. Yeah.